Hey guys, welcome back. So we are getting our first frost tonight. Getting this random cold dip. It's only gonna hit freezing tonight and not anymore this week. So I could try to cover a few things, but honestly at this point, I'm just gonna get stuff harvested and I really wanna get the garden reset anyway. The loofah plant put on a lot of loofahs toward like the end of summer. So a lot of them are starting to really dry up now. So I'm gonna play around with a few different techniques on harvesting them while they're green. I have harvested them while they're green in the past, so I'm gonna still do that. But there is a good amount I need to get harvested out of this garden. So I should probably stop rambling and just start picking stuff off, and let's see what all we can get harvested out of this garden for one of the final times of 2024. We'll still have a good amount of cool weather crops in this garden. I have a bunch of broccoli. Hopefully I will still get cabbage. Cabbage has gotten hit a little bit more with the cabbage moss than the broccoli, but I still have like beets and some lettuces and carrots and things like that, which will all be fine tonight. But we do have a good amount of stuff that needs to come out if I don't want it to die tonight. So let's do some harvesting. Look at all of that hibiscus. So excited to dry all that. I am just going through and grabbing all of the tomatoes that I can. If there's any type of like blossom end rot, which there isn't many that have that, or just kind of imperfections from caterpillars, I'm just gonna toss them to the side for right now. I do have some that are already turned, and then if they're more of like this pale yellowy green color, these should change just fine inside. I have had some issues in the past with ones that are more green like this actually ripening. So I'm gonna go through and just pick everything, and I'll kind of categorize everything out. I'm gonna put these on my curing station that I've done with some other things like my sweet potatoes and onions, and I'll just kind of line them out like that, and we'll see how they ripen. I'm already really happy with the harvest of tomatoes I got for the year, so this is honestly kind of secondary. I do have a good amount on a table inside that are red that I need to process. I actually think I might do one more round of salsa since I'm gonna be getting a lot more peppers out of this garden as well, but I also have some in the freezer. Like, I still have a good amount of tomatoes I could process over the next few weeks. I only grabbed the ones that looked good, but that's still a good amount of tomatoes here. There was 72 loofah still on this plant, and I've had to at least have harvested close to 20 already. There's 4 of which that are smaller that I can go ahead and actually eat. And then there's a good amount, like I have this more yellow one here that I could go ahead and peel because I already peeled 2 of them. And then there's some of these ones that are green that are more hollow, and I think these will just be also really easy to peel and get them processed. These are the ones that are a little bit harder. There's a good amount sitting there, so I have my work cut out for me for sure. I have so many loofah here. I need to get my wheelbarrow and put this over with the rest of the harvest. This one fell, and I wanted to show you that if it's pretty far along and it starts to feel soft, it's actually pretty easy to peel. Just kind of hard to get all the gunk clean, but you can still get a sponge. Ta-da! I'm gonna let it sit over here. You guys, what a harvest. Honestly, I can't believe I'm still getting this much out of the garden in October. The frost is definitely coming a little bit earlier than I would have hoped. The last few years, it's been at the end of October, and we would have had some more time for some of this stuff to turn. But honestly, I'm not mad about it. I'm really excited to go ahead and get this garden all cleaned up. It's been kind of driving me nuts, and I want to prep the garden beds for garlic and things like that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to get all of this stuff taken inside. I'm going to put the loofah, the melon melons and the tomatoes all on my curing rack in my garage for tonight. I'm gonna try to process a good amount of these loofahs this week. I wanna play around with a few different ways of drying. One of the ways might take a little bit longer, but there's a few ways I wanna mess with. We're gonna wait for some of these tomatoes, but I'm gonna try to process a good amount of these peppers. I wanna powder a bunch of them down. I want to dice them, throw them into soups and stews. I need to dry the hibiscus and the lavender. The melons are also going to go in the garage, and the chickens will just get a melon 1 to 2 a day until I run out. These should stay pretty steady for the next week inside just fine, so that will be a little treat for them. But I'm gonna get all of this in, and we have a lot to work on over the next few days. Come on. Go, girls. Let's get one last look at the garden before frost comes and kills it tonight. It may not be the prettiest now, but it served us well this year for sure. What a great year. All of my other herbs are gonna be fine, but I almost forgot that this white sage would be completely killed by frost, so I need to get that in too. I woke up this morning and my phone said 33 degrees, not 32 degrees. So I really wasn't sure if we got hit with frost or not. I did see some frost on the car, but it wasn't until probably like 9:30 that I noticed the top of the trellis here definitely got hit with frost. Not all of it though. You can see that a lot of the trellis still looks bright and green. A lot of the peppers look untouched. I think the tomatoes, I don't think they look as good, but they don't look terrible. Sometimes I've gotten frost and it really knocks everything out. This time around, I think we were just like really at that border, and some of like the microclimates in the yard probably got hit versus the whole thing. I don't think I'm gonna get to any of the loofahs today. I wanna try to play around with a few different options with those, but I'm gonna try to knock out some of the peppers today. I'm not going to do all of them because I do think I wanna try one more batch of salsa. I have enough tomatoes that are red, and I also have serranos and jalapenos. I want to make one more batch of salsa because I want one more hotter batch, and then I'm also thinking I might try to do some jalapeno jelly, and if I do both those things, I need to run to the store. I need pectin and also cilantro. I'm gonna try to dice up some of those peppers really small instead of like buying diced green chilies in a can for different chilies and stuff like that. I want to just dice up a bunch, and then that way I can throw them into soups and stews. I think that's a really good idea too. And I'm gonna powder down a bunch of them as well, but that's going to take me a while to clean all of them. We'll see how much I can fit into the freeze dryer. I was finishing up my last batch I did the other night. I had some more peppers going from the previous harvest because I harvested so much out of this garden within like a 3 to 4 day period. So I have a lot to work on, but I wanted to show you guys that really the garden doesn't look like hit. But here's a closer up view. You can see all of the dead foliage up top. But really though, I mean, you can see the peppers look fine. Here is the little stash of the stuff that is inside. So here's all of my red tomatoes, and then these are serranos, jalapenos. I have a bunch of red and green serranos. Same with the jalapenos. I have green cayennes, red cayennes, also some banana peppers here as well. But I'm gonna start, I don't know exactly what I really want to, I don't know if I want to dehydrate or freeze dry the hibiscus. I last talked to you guys when I was getting the peppers in the freeze dryer. So these got done yesterday. Yesterday I didn't film too much. I was really knocking out a lot of loofah. So These got done and all I did was put them into the jar, vacuum seal them. I have some extra right here as well. Went ahead and continued on with the powder. So this is my snacking pepper powder. I love the color of this. I have a serrano powder here. I got another jar of spicy paprika. This is just a mix of my paprika peppers and cayennes. And then we also got some banana pepper powder as well. So nothing too crazy. All I did was blend those in the blender for about like 45 seconds to make into a powder. So that got done late last night. Well, I got to it late last night because I was focused on messing with the loofah. So I wanted to kind of test this out a little bit. Previously, when I would process my green loofah, it was awful. So last year I got so many dry loofah, I didn't even mess with the green loofah because in 2022 I was like, that's not worth it. Because I watched a handful of videos where people were processing their green loofah and they were all doing what I did, which was pretty much just try to break open the skin as much as you can. It worked, but it was so much work that I really never wanted to do it again. So this year I went diving into trying to figure out other ways to do it. And I'm testing out a few different ways just to kind of see if I can have better success with just letting it dry out naturally. So there's a few different methods I'm trying with that. I have a bunch on my rack currently in my garage, and then I also have a few outside that are on the rack. We haven't been freezing or anything like that, so we're going to try that. But I also wanted to test this oven method, which I will probably show you guys this. I can honestly say it works really great. I want to try to knock out some salsa. I'm thinking I'm going to be able to get a double batch of salsa today, which would be so nice. One thing I want to do a little differently versus in the summer, I'm going to throw in more serrano. So over the summer, I was following closer to what the recipe says, and in canning recipes, you can switch out hot peppers for sweet peppers. You just have to make sure you have the same quantity. And I wasn't quite sure what I did the year prior, and I've had hotter salsa that I've made. So I definitely did more jalapeno. So I wanted to try to get a double batch done a little bit more hotter. We go through so much salsa that it wouldn't hurt to try to get a double batch. So I'm gonna see how many tomatoes I have here. Maybe we can get more than a double batch. I bought enough cilantro this morning to where we should be covered on that. And then whatever I don't use for salsa, I already have a pound of jalapenos here as well. I want to make a jalapeno jelly, which I have never made before. I don't know if I'm going to get to that today. I'm going to try to. I don't think I will. If I don't, I'll also get to that tomorrow. But I also have a bunch of red jalapenos here and serranos. So I actually started, this is my third batch of sriracha 3 days ago, and I've tweaked the batch every single time. So you guys might recall a few videos back, I walked you guys through the whole process of sriracha, and since then I did a second batch, and in the second batch what I did differently was double the garlic. So I did 6 cloves of garlic, and then I also cooked it down for about 30 minutes. The first batch I only cooked down for about 10 minutes, and my husband, he said he felt like it was a little bit vinegary, and I was like, all right, well, let me try to cook it down a little bit. I feel like that will kind of bring out a little bit more of that sweetness, which it did. It kind of balanced it more. So we really liked the second batch. The only thing I did differently for this third batch was I added some serranos. I didn't add many, but I've been having a good amount of these really beautiful red serranos, and this will just make it a tinge hotter. So I'm really excited about this. This is going to continue to ferment for about 4 more days or so. So I might try to knock out one more batch of that. I want to see just how much I'm going to use for salsa, and then we're going to kind of go from there. I might throw some more into the freeze dryer, but honestly, I think I might be done drying peppers. And I might actually, since I need to peel these tomatoes, I might dehydrate the skins and make a tomato powder. I've actually used a good amount of that tomato powder out of my skins from the summer already, so I definitely have my work cut out for me. I really want to get to a lot of this by the next 2 days. I really don't want to go past that, just to keep everything as fresh as possible. So we'll see if I even get to Luffa tomorrow. The Luffa should be fine regardless. I just wanted to get some of them knocked out and kind of test that whole process out in the oven, because I get so many questions on what to do if you have green Luffa. I have a pot of water that is about to start boiling. We are going to get our tomatoes clean. We are going to get them skinned. So I'm going to blanch them, throw them in an ice bath, take off the skins, and then we're going to see how many cups of tomatoes we get, and that's going to determine how much jalapenos and other ingredients we need. So with these tomatoes, I washed them and then I cut an X at the bottom and I put them into boiling water for 2 minutes. After that 2 minutes, they go into an ice bath and that will shock the skins. And at that point, it's easy to peel. Now I am just going to go through and peel them. I'm going to save the skin to dehydrate later. All of the skins. I got everything chopped up. I'm about to add it all in. I don't have any cumin. My husband is on his way home from work and he's gonna bring it. I completely forgot, I ran out last time. So I am just gonna go ahead and get all the ingredients in and then I'll add that here in a second. I will have a link to this recipe down below. I was able to get 1.5 batches today. So to my pot, I added my tomatoes, peppers, onions, garlic, cilantro, vinegar, tomato paste, and cumin and brought it all up to a boil. I reduced the heat and let it simmer for 30 minutes to thicken up. Once ready, I poured into 8-ounce jars. 8-ounce jars are my favorite for salsa. It's the perfect little individual size. I wipe the rim and I place my lid and rings on. And once I get all of the salsa worked through and into jars, I process using the water bath method for 25 minutes. I was excited to get 14 more jars for my pantry today and another round that was a little bit hotter. Good morning, guys. So we are up early and we are about to start some canning. So I am doing some jalapeno jelly today, which I have never done before, but I am very excited about it. So this was always a staple at the hair salon I worked at for such a long time, which I never had until living in Kansas. But you just do jalapeno, peppers, cider vinegar, sugar, and then liquid pectin, which, funny story about the pectin, yesterday I went to the store so I could buy pectin because I've only made jam one time. I have not messed with a lot of jams and jellies, and I bought dry pectin, which I get home, turn to the recipe to double check everything, and it says liquid pectin. So I had to go back to the store, return the dry pectin, buy liquid pectin, come back home. It was an adventure, let me tell you. So we have everything we need to do this morning. I honestly can't believe how many peppers I haven't worked through yet. It really doesn't look like I made much of a dent yesterday with the salsa, but I'm really happy that we got 14 8-ounce jars of salsa yesterday. We got this completely perfect. Like, I had no more I needed. I filled the jar exactly how I needed to fill it. But jalapeno jelly is on the agenda. It looks pretty easy, but again, this is new for me. All I have to do though is get these peppers de-seeded, and we are going to puree them with some of the cider vinegar and whatnot. I don't know how much I'm going to talk through this because typically when I'm trying anything new canning, I really focus. Always add some white vinegar into your canner. This will help keep your jars clean, especially if you have any harder water. I'm waiting on my stock pot to come to a boil, and then we will start to process for 15 minutes. Honestly, pretty easy process. I did have to be pretty quick there at the end to skim off the foam and like clean everything up before it got like really sticky. But yeah, I will process these for 15 minutes and then I'll let them sit in the canner for about 5, and then I'll take them out, and then we have to wait for them to set, and then we'll see how they turned out. But I have high hopes. I think it looked pretty good. I'm pretty excited about it. I got all the jelly out of the canner and all of my tomato skins into the dehydrator. The next day, I wanted to play around and experiment with some green tomatoes. When my jelly was processing, I saw a recipe for a salsa verde using green tomatoes, so I figured I would give it a try. I got my tomatoes washed and peeled, and a veggie peeler worked out great for this. I originally tried to blanch it and it did not work. I cored them and I diced them, and I got 7 cups worth done for our recipe. And then I also chopped some jalapenos, red onion, garlic, and cilantro. I added everything to a pot where I added in half a cup of lime juice, cumin, dried oregano, salt, and pepper. I got everything mixed together, and as everything was heating up, I got my jars and canner ready for canning. Once my salsa came to a boil for 5 minutes, I removed from heat and I started the canning process. I got these water bath canned for 25 minutes, and when I was done, my tomato skins were done in the dehydrator, so I got them powdered down and into a jar. I made this salsa verde yesterday, and this is the first time I've ever processed green tomatoes. I was going through my canning book when I was making the jalapeno jelly, and I stumbled upon so many green tomato recipes. And my husband mentioned it was salsa verde, but I was like, you have to use tomatillos. But that recipe in the ball book uses green tomatoes. So I'm really excited about that. I will say I went into the processing day knowing that salsa does take some time, but I was thinking it'd be quicker because the tomatoes were green for some reason. But honestly, they were a lot harder to peel. I ended up using a veggie peeler, and that worked out a lot easier, but it ended up taking me longer, I feel like, to do the tomatoes. And I had half of the amount yesterday. So I still have some green tomatoes in the garage, and I'm thinking I'm going to do a green tomato pie, which is kind of like a mock apple pie. I want to do that. I don't know if I'm going to get to that today. That might wait until tomorrow. But I might try another recipe or so. I'm not quite sure. A lot of them are changing color. I actually have like a whole little bit off to the side that are changing color, and I'll probably be able to use all of those tomatoes by the end of the week. But what I need to do today, like first and foremost, which is going to take me some time here, I need to process these peppers. So if I need to get to these today, I don't want them to start to go bad. And they all still look pretty good. I did go through them, and there was a few that didn't look that great anymore. I would say they were still just fine, but if they were showing signs of aging, which you don't really want to do if you're trying to preserve anything. But I'm going to make a ton of hot sauce today. So I have green jalapenos, I have red serranos and red jalapenos here, and then I have a ton of green serranos here. And what I'm thinking, so I was looking up different recipes. So I of course do this fermented sriracha, which will be done tomorrow, but I don't know if I really want to do one more batch of sriracha or not. I don't think I have enough red jalapenos, but this is a few pounds of peppers. So this is probably going to take me a while to get all this worked through. And while I do that, I'm going to make a clear decision on what I want to do as far as these peppers go, because I could just freeze dry some. I have made a red jalapeno powder. Let's see, which is right here, which is really good. I've been doing all different types of powders, and I've been enjoying them so much. So the one that really surprised me is this snacking pepper powder, which is just pretty much bell peppers, those little snacking peppers that you get from the store. I had a variety pack, and I had 2 plants that were orange and 1 that was yellow, and I've just been freeze drying them, and I really like this. Like, it actually surprised me how much I like it, but I love using my freeze dryer for all sorts of stuff. So I do have a handful of jars I am sterilizing at the moment. That way they're ready to go for if I dry things or if I make hot sauce. Whenever doing stuff with hot peppers, highly suggest wearing gloves. Don't learn the hard way. Your hands will start to burn, but then they will continue to burn for a few hours, and it's quite annoying. I have a half pound of serranos here that I got all seeded out, and I'm gonna put these in a pan. I'm going to make a serrano hot sauce that isn't fermented. Here I have garlic and onion that I'm gonna also add to the pan, and I'm gonna cook this down for about 5-10 minutes, kind of get a slight browning or char on it. I will link this recipe down below if you are interested in it. I really just wanted to play around with different hot sauce recipes. I really like how I've been making the sriracha. And I wanted to see just any other type of hot sauce recipes that maybe weren't fermented as well that I would end up liking. So I'm gonna get this cooked down, and then once I get this cooked down, I believe I add a cup of water, get everything really soft, and then it's kind of a blending and straining game. It's been really fun to try out some new recipes, especially because I was able to get so many of the things I really wanted to preserved already. So hopefully this way we'll try out a few new things, and then that way I'll know what to do with some of the abundance at the very end of the season, because it's one of those things I haven't been the best about in previous years. I've done a few things, but I've never gone this crazy with just like the first frost and trying to preserve up as much as I can into different things. It wasn't even until last year I really started to play around with hot sauce, and you can really knock out a good amount of peppers with hot sauce. It's going to cook for about 5 more minutes. I just added in 1 tablespoon of sugar. Everything softened up a lot. I'm gonna get this transferred into the bigger jar I have over there and add some vinegar and lime juice to it. I need to double check. I think there's a few other things I might need to add, and then I'm gonna immersion blend them, and then I'm gonna strain everything into the sauce. A cup of white vinegar, 3 tablespoons of lime juice. And then I'm gonna do a teaspoon each of paprika, which this is a like spicy paprika. So a little bit of cayenne as well. And I'm also going to do salt. Okay, I really like the flavor of this. It's very light and fresh, but it has a very nice heat. Serranos are hotter than jalapenos, but this is such a very round flavor. I think it'd pair perfectly with a teriyaki just to make something even brighter, but also spicier. I really like this. I am so excited to play around with this in the kitchen this week. Looks like a little bit closer so you can see the color. It's really dark outside right now. We have a storm that's really close to us at the moment, but I am so excited about this. I decided I'm gonna do the exact same thing or very similar with the red jalapenos. morning, you guys. So the Serrano hot sauce that I made yesterday, new favorite. It is so good. The heat level on it, I think, is perfect. It is hot, but it's a really good type of hot, and it's also very limey since there's lime juice in it. My husband used it on some rice and loved it. I made tacos last night and I loved it on the tacos. It was so good mixed with sour cream. It is a really, really good sauce. If you like a cilantro, lime, or just kind of that type of flavor, but with some heat, highly suggest trying that one. I'm pretty positive I can get Serranos from the grocery store, which I'm really hoping I can, because I'll probably be making that hot sauce quite often. It was very easy. I think we're gonna go through that hot sauce I made yesterday a lot faster than I was initially thinking. I do need to process the sriracha today, which I will be getting to probably later on. This morning, my game plan is I'm gonna get some of these loofahs into the oven. I'm gonna process some more of these green ones down into the oven. I am testing a few separate ways to dry out the loofah. I'm not going to be processing all of them, but I want to process a good amount of them because there's a certain number of loofah I want to have on hand, especially with using them for the chicken nest pads and then gifting some of the loofahs for the holidays. Anyway, my oven is preheating at 250 at the moment, so I'm going to get the ends of these loofahs cut off, and then I'm also going to cut a slit down the center of it. So these are going to go into the oven at 225 to 250 degrees Fahrenheit for about an hour, hour and a half. And then at that point, they're pretty easy to peel and also clean. A lot of that like green sappy goo gets a lot looser with the heat as far as my experience of drying them goes. But I am playing around with a few separate ways of drying them to where hopefully I can give you more options on drying them without like more extra work added. So I'm gonna get these prepped into the oven, and then we're going to move on to pie. So I am going to use some of these green tomatoes and make a green tomato pie. This is kind of like a mock apple pie. So I need to get some pie dough made, but we're gonna get these loofahs prepped and into the oven first. We'll get our pie dough made, probably knock out the loofahs, and then we'll get to the pie this afternoon. And then at that point, our freeze dryer will also be done with the jalapenos. I think it has like 5-ish hours left. So we have a busy day ahead. So let's go ahead and get some of these loofahs knocked out. There's a few of these green ones that are actually pretty easy to peel. I mean, you can tell if a loofah is feeling dense or not, and this one is pretty loose. Some of them were pretty close to changing over when I had to pick everything. So yeah, you can see I just like that. And sometimes you don't even need the oven trick for some of these loofahs. This one is pretty much the same way. Kind of curve your finger like a hook and pull down. This one's huge. Yeah, this thing is massive. This is a huge loofah. So it's been 7 days since these ones were picked, and they're all still in really good shape. I think it probably did help loosen the skins up a little bit. All right, so the ones that are more dense, I found that a serrated bread knife, and just by cutting both the ends, then I'm gonna create a slit here, and this will help get the skin off once it goes through the oven. But you can see how it's dense, kind of like a zucchini is at this time. Not as dense, but still more dense. That side is more dense for sure. This one's easy. Here's how many I have out here still. All right, I have 10 going into the oven here. And then I want to say there's probably 6 or 7. There's 8 in the sink, but essentially what we're doing is we are going to be cutting out the spine portion and cleaning out as much of the seed as possible. That way they lay flat like this, and it's little loofah fabric that we can do anything with. We can either cut this into little scrub brushes, or I've been making nest pads for my chickens out of these. So I just want to have a ton ready to go. That way when I want to make something, I can just easily do it. To cut the loofah spine, place your scissors along one of the sides that connects to the center and cut upwards. And now you can easily see where to cut next. Just continue to go along until you've cut out that entire center. Make sure you don't cut off too much of that spine or you will cut holes into your loofah. Once your spine is gone, you have your fabric piece, which I will wash and scrub off any extra seeds and pulp at this time as well. I also like to place it in a vinegar bath from time to time. I also like to let these lay flat to dry. The ones I placed into the oven were done, so I let those cool for about 20 minutes and then I peeled off the skins, and I did the exact same process as I just did. There were so many seeds, and I often get the question on if you can save these seeds or not. And my response is, if the seed didn't fully dry on the plant, it's probably not viable, but it doesn't hurt to try. Now, when it comes to the pie, my biggest tip is to freeze your butter and then to use a cheese grater, and this will help get your butter into small little pieces. And it's really easy to combine the butter with the flour this way. So I got my flour all measured out. I added in some sugar as well. And then I got those mixed together and I added in my butter, and you will see just how easily this butter intertwines into the flour. So I got all of that mixed together and I started to knead it into a dough onto the counter. And once it got into a dough, I ended up weighing it out so I could find the total gram measurement and divide it into 2. That way I could split it into 2 even pie crust. And then all I did was wrap it in some parchment paper and I let it cool for about 2 hours in the fridge while I continued to do a few other things and also prepped the rest of the stuff for the mock apple pie. So I got my green tomatoes washed up and I got those all peeled up using a veggie peeler again. I will say I was so happy I didn't waste my time blanching them this time. It worked way easier with them not being cooked at all either. So this was definitely the way to do some green tomatoes peeling. So I got 4 cups worth peeled and sliced thinly, just like you would slice an apple. I will say at this time, the texture of the green tomatoes without the skin is very much like an apple. It was not that way when I tried to blanch them. They were a little bit softer, so I was a little bit surprised, and it kind of made sense to me why this mock apple pie might just be a thing. So I got my green tomatoes all sliced up, and then I got some flour, some sugar, some allspice, some cinnamon, all mixed together. I also add a little bit of salt, but then here's the weird part. You add a few tablespoons of apple cider vinegar to the tomatoes, and this kind of threw me off. I was like, I don't know about this. But then I added in my sugar mixture to the tomatoes and I got that all mixed together. And I'm telling you, at this point, it pretty much looks identical to apple pie. So I don't know why it wouldn't taste like apple pie. It just is one of those weird things that I've personally never done before. But I got that all mixed together and I let that sit while I prepared my pie crust. So I got it all rolled out. This is actually a pretty big pie pan here. It's like 12 inches across, so it's quite large. And I got my dough mixed up. I got my little tomato mixture all in there, and then I actually decided I was going to do a weaving of the top crust, and this is something I've never done. I was highly impressed with what it looked like, and I will probably always do this. I also brush the top of the pie crust with just an egg wash. It's just an egg, a little bit of butter whisked together, and then you just use a pastry brush and put it on there to help your crust get nice and golden. So that went into the oven for about an hour, and during that time frame, I went and got my freeze-dried jalapenos, and I got those blended up and then grinded into a powder. I'm really excited to play around with this because I'm thinking since I was able to freeze dry them like this, I might be able to make a hot sauce out of them just from a powder. So that's going to be a little experiment I do. And once I got done with that, I then moved on to the sriracha that I needed to get done. So here is what the ferment of the red jalapenos looks like. To that, I added a tablespoon of sugar. I also added in a ½ cup of rice vinegar and got that all blended together. And then I got it all strained and I cooked it down for quite some time. So once it got cooked down, I just transferred to a sterilized jar. And at that point, my pie was done, but they state to let apple pie sit for a 3-hour minimum. So I was like, right, this is probably pretty close. So really, I should have waited till 10 p.m. to cut it. So I didn't end up cutting it this night. I just waited until the following morning and I cut myself a slice. I will say this pie turned out so beautifully, but I cut myself off a slice and I just heated it back up at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for about 15 minutes. And now it's time to do a taste test. You honestly would not know that those were tomatoes. They have the exact same crunch as the apple. Okay guys, if you have green tomatoes, you have to make this. Honestly, you could fool someone. If they didn't know you used green tomatoes, I don't know if they would have any idea. The crunch is the exact same as apple pie. It literally tastes like apple pie. I'm not exaggerating when I say that either. It really does taste like apple pie. This was definitely not a fail. I'm so happy about this. It's the next day, obviously, and it's been a full week now since we have had our first frost and harvested everything from the garden. So I was able to get a good amount of stuff preserved up. I still have some stuff though. I have some tomatoes that just turned red that I'll probably get into the freezer later. I still have some more green tomatoes that I'm probably going to play around with a little bit more. I either want to do maybe like another canning recipe or maybe like another baked good like I just did. Like I'm so excited about that green tomato pie. But I was able to get 40 of these loofahs all knocked out. There's a good amount here, and I have about 20 still in the garage. And then I'll show you the tomatoes in a second. But with that, I was able to get 14 more jars of the salsa I really, really like. I made this batch a little bit hotter. I was able to get 6 jars of jalapeno jelly, which this was a new recipe for me, and I really, really like this. We've already gone through about half the jar. I have not tried this yet, but this is the Verde salsa we made out of green tomatoes. And then I have a ton of different powders here. I have serrano powder, I have a snacking pepper powder, I have cayenne powder, I have spicy paprika, we have tomato powder, banana pepper powder, and then I also have our chopped peppers that I'm going to use, like green chilies. I also have the jalapeno powder that I freeze dried as well, and I'm thinking I really want to play around with this and maybe try to make a hot sauce out of freeze dried jalapeno powder. I think that would actually really work. And then that's one way where if I don't want to make a ton of hot sauce right off the bat, maybe I can make like a concentrated version. And outside of this, I also have my lavender and hibiscus downstairs in my hang dryer. Also can't forget about all the hot sauce we did too. But here is the rest of the tomatoes. Ever since doing salsa, we've had a good amount of tomatoes turning. I need to probably get a handful of these into the freezer. This one's like perfect ripeness at the moment. So outside of these tomatoes here, I do have, I want to say 8 to 10 bags in my freezer that I will be processing down into sauce probably next week or the week after once I get these all into the freezer with it. I'm going to wait for some of these to continue to turn. Then here is the rest of our green tomatoes. I want to say we at least worked through maybe half, but that is all that's left outside of the 20 loofahs in the garage. I actually have a few loofah outside as well. That's where I'm like experimenting with drying them out in certain areas. But I will be probably processing down about 10 to 15 more of these. And then I'm experimenting with about 5 to 6 of them to see how they will completely dry out. But that is what is left minus what is outside. I hope this video gave you some ideas or nudge to try something new at the very end of harvest season. Sometimes this is where I can find some of my favorite new things when I'm experimenting around. So I'm really excited to try this salsa verde, and I will keep you guys updated on this and anything else I do with the harvest. But I'm pretty excited with what we all got done this week, and I just appreciate you guys for being along for the journey. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you guys all in the next one. Bye.